Situated on Ireland's rugged southwest coast in County Kerry, the Dingle Peninsula reaches far out into the Atlantic Ocean. It is a landscape of mountains, green fields, ancient stone ruins, tiny villages, sheep, narrow roads, and dramatic sea cliffs. In our opinion, one of the very best ways to experience this part of Ireland is to drive the Slea Head Drive yourself in a rental car. Slea Head Drive is a circular route of approximately 48 kilometers, or about 30 miles. It begins and ends near the same roundabout in the town of Dingle. 30 miles may not sound like much of a drive, but this is definitely not a road to hurry. Give yourself several hours. Better yet, give yourself most of the day. Along the way are ancient settlements, prehistoric stone structures, early Christian sites, Irish-speaking villages, famous movie locations, mountain scenery, beaches, cliffs, and spectacular views across the Atlantic toward the Blasket Islands. Before leaving Dingle, we stopped at a grocery store and bought everything we needed for a picnic lunch. That turned out to be a very good decision. There are plenty of beautiful places along the route where you can simply pull over, look out across the countryside or the Atlantic, and enjoy lunch surrounded by scenery that would be difficult to improve upon. The route is clearly marked and relatively easy to follow. There are stretches where it becomes extremely narrow. In places, there really is room for only one vehicle at a time. High hedges crowd the roadway. Stone walls seem to come right up to the car. On the cliff sections, the Atlantic can be immediately beyond the edge of the pavement. You also share the route with bicyclists, farm vehicles, local residents, and occasionally sheep. During our drive, we saw sheep standing along the roadside, crossed a narrow, single-lane bridge, and even encountered a small mountain stream flowing directly across the roadway. One of the fascinating things about the Dingle Peninsula is just how long people have lived here. Human activity on the peninsula stretches back thousands of years. Long before paved roads, automobiles, or even Christianity reached Ireland, people were building homes, defensive settlements, and monuments from the stone that covered this landscape. One of the ancient places we visited was Cashel Murphy. The site has origins reaching back thousands of years and provides a remarkable look at how people lived in prehistoric and early historic Ireland. What is particularly striking is the stonework. These people did not have modern machinery, concrete, or steel. They had stone, and they became very good at using it. Stone walls formed homes and enclosures. Stone protected families and livestock. Stone divided fields. Stone marked important places. Much of that stonework remains visible today. The site also contains a souterrain. A souterrain is an underground passage or chamber constructed beneath a settlement. These underground spaces could be used for storing food and grain, where the cooler temperatures helped preserve supplies. They could also provide a hiding place during times of danger. Imagine living here thousands of years ago. No electricity, no paved roads, no modern communications. And yet these communities understood agriculture, construction, astronomy, and the rhythms of the seasons. Ancient sites throughout Ireland demonstrate how carefully early people observed the movement of the sun and stars. Standing among these stones today, it is difficult not to wonder about the people who built them and the generations who lived here before us. We continued along Slea Head Drive until we came across one of those roadside signs that simply demanded a stop. The sign read, "Ferry Fort and Pet Sheep." That was enough for us. There was a wide spot in the road for parking across from a farmhouse. It was early May, which meant it was lambing season. There were sheep everywhere, and lots of babies. A fellow who looked every bit the local farmer greeted us and asked if we would like a cup of coffee. Then, almost casually, he mentioned that he had just spotted a whale in the Atlantic. He pointed toward the water and showed us where he had seen it. We talked about farming for a while before entering the gated field. The sheep were curious about their visitors, and scattered around the field were several ancient stone beehive huts. These structures are known in Irish as clochán. A clochán is a dry stone hut constructed using a building technique known as corbelling. Instead of constructing a modern roof, each successive layer of stone projects slightly farther inward than the layer below it. The walls gradually narrow until they eventually meet at the top. The resulting structure looks somewhat like a stone beehive. No mortar was required. The stones were carefully selected and positioned so that gravity held the entire structure together. People on Ireland's southwest coast use this type of construction for centuries. Similar stone huts are famously associated with the early Christian monks who lived on the remote Skellig Islands off the coast of County Kerry. Looking toward those islands from the Dingle Peninsula gives you some idea of just how isolated those monks chose to be. The landscape here can be bleak, it can be windy, it can be wet, and it can feel very isolated, but it is also extraordinarily beautiful. For the monks who settled in places like this, that isolation was part of the attraction. They believed that removing themselves from the everyday world brought them closer to God. Standing there surrounded by green mountains and the Atlantic Ocean, you can understand at least a little of what they meant. Along the drive, there is another constant presence: sheep. The Dingle Peninsula is home to tens of thousands of sheep, and they are part of nearly every view. You also see plenty of cattle grazing in the extraordinarily green fields. Among them are the familiar black and white Friesian and Holstein dairy cattle. We also saw belted Galloway cattle, a Scottish breed that is very easy to recognize. They are usually black with a broad white band completely encircling the middle of their bodies. They look as though somebody threw a white blanket over them. Ireland's famous green landscape is not an accident. The mild Atlantic climate provides plentiful rainfall and a long grass-growing season. That grass supports Ireland's important cattle and dairy industries and explains why grazing animals are such a dominant part of the countryside. Slea Head Drive is also part of Ireland's much larger Wild Atlantic Way. The Wild Atlantic Way stretches for approximately 2,500 kilometers, or just over 1,550 miles, along Ireland's western coast. It travels through 9 counties, from County Donegal in the north all the way to County Cork in the south. It is one of the longest defined coastal touring routes in the world. You will recognize the Wild Atlantic Way by the distinctive blue road signs displaying a white wave-like symbol. Slea Head Drive represents only about 30 miles of those 1,550 miles, but it may be one of the most spectacular sections of the entire route. The road itself is part of the experience. Ireland itself is an island of roughly 32,600 square miles. The Republic of Ireland contains 26 counties, while the 6 counties of Northern Ireland are part of the United Kingdom. Today, the Republic of Ireland has a population of about 5.5 million people. Yet once you travel west from Ireland's cities and onto the Dingle Peninsula, the country can suddenly feel remarkably empty, and that is part of its appeal. The weather was typically Irish, cool, a little windy, occasional rain sprinkles, then sunshine, then perhaps another sprinkle. But nothing interfered with our plans. In fact, the changing weather seemed to belong to the landscape. One minute the mountains were beneath gray clouds. A few minutes later, sunlight broke through and illuminated fields so green that they almost did not look real. That is Western Ireland. Continuing around the peninsula, we stopped at the spectacular Skellig Head Overlook. This is one of those places where photographs simply do not quite capture what you are seeing. The Atlantic stretches toward the horizon, green fields tumble down toward the sea, cliffs rise abruptly from the coast, and mountains form the backdrop. From here you can see Slea Head. High on the headland is a small dark structure. It is a coastal watchtower dating from the era when Britain feared an invasion by the forces of Napoleon. During the late 1700s and early 1800s, a chain of defensive towers was constructed around portions of the Irish coast. The towers were positioned so that one could communicate with another. If an enemy fleet appeared offshore, warning signals could be relayed along the coastline. Fortunately for Ireland, Napoleon never arrived. Today, the little tower remains high above the Atlantic as a reminder of a very different period in European history. Slea Head has another connection to a much more modern story. This part of the Dingle Peninsula became associated with filming for the modern Star Wars movies. The dramatic coastline around Western Ireland provided a perfect setting for the remote world depicted in the films. Looking across this landscape, it is easy to see why the filmmakers chose it. Nearby are three distinctive mountain peaks known as the Three Sisters. Beneath them lies the Dingle Golf Course, where golfers play with one of the most spectacular backdrops imaginable. Farther inland is Mount Brandon. At approximately 3,123 feet, Mount Brandon is one of Ireland's highest mountains. It is named for St. Brendan, one of Ireland's legendary early Christian saints and navigators. For centuries, pilgrims have climbed the mountain along ancient routes. But there is another story written into these hills, a much sadder one. The Great Famine began in 1845 when potato blight devastated Ireland's potato crop. For many poor rural families, potatoes were not simply another food. They were the primary food. When the crop failed repeatedly, the consequences were catastrophic. People died from starvation and disease. Others emigrated. Entire communities were transformed. Before the Great Famine, tens of thousands of people lived across the Dingle Peninsula. The population collapsed during the famine years and continued declining afterward as generations left Ireland for Britain, the United States, Canada, Australia, and other parts of the world. The evidence remains visible in the landscape. Look high up on some of these hills and you can still see old stone walls and the outlines of fields. Before the famine, families cultivated land at elevations that would rarely be considered worthwhile farmland today. After the population declined, there was simply no longer a need to farm so far up the mountainsides. Those abandoned fields remain like fingerprints across the hills. Ireland as a whole experienced an extraordinary population transformation. The island contained more than 8 million people immediately before the Great Famine. Within only a few years, death and emigration reduced that population dramatically. For generations afterward, Ireland continued losing people through immigration. That history is one reason Irish communities, families, and cultural influences can be found throughout the world today. Eventually, Ireland's population began growing again. But in remote western places like the Dingle Peninsula, the landscape still carries the physical evidence of the people who once lived here. As we continued along Slea Head, we could look across the water toward the Ring of Kerry. Offshore lie the Blasket Islands. The islands appear close enough to touch on a clear day. Yet life there was extraordinarily isolated. For generations, small Irish-speaking communities lived on the Great Blasket and neighboring islands, supporting themselves largely from farming in the sea. The Blasket community became particularly important to Irish literature because several island residents recorded their lives and experiences in books written in the Irish language. Eventually, life on the islands became too difficult to sustain. The remaining permanent residents were evacuated from Great Blasket Island in 1953. Today, the islands are uninhabited except for seasonal visitors and workers, but they remain one of the defining sites of the Dingle Peninsula. The Dingle Peninsula itself remains one of Ireland's important Gaeltacht regions. A Gaeltacht is an area where the Irish language remains an important part of everyday community life. Ireland officially recognizes both Irish and English, and road signs throughout the peninsula remind you that this is a place where the Irish language is still very much alive. Another important historic stop along our journey was Galaris Oratory. Galaris is one of the most recognizable ancient stone structures on the Dingle Peninsula. Its unusual shape is often described as looking like an overturned boat. The structure was built entirely from locally available stone. Like the beehive huts, it uses core-belled construction. Each successive course of stone projects slightly inward until the walls eventually meet at the roof. The workmanship is remarkable. Centuries of Atlantic wind and rain have battered this building, yet it still stands. Galaris is generally believed to date from Ireland's early or medieval Christian period, although its precise age continues to be discussed by historians. Nearby is another reminder of just how much history survives on this peninsula. A stone bears a simple carved cross. Throughout the Dingle Peninsula, dozens of ancient stones also survive with inscriptions written in Ogham. Ogham was an early system of writing used in Ireland. Instead of letters like those we use today, Ogham inscriptions consist largely of groups of lines and strokes carved along the edge of a standing stone. Many contain personal names and may have served as memorial stones, territorial markers, or indications of family connections to particular lands. We both agreed that Slea Head Drive was one of the most scenic drives we experienced anywhere in Ireland. And part of what made it so memorable was that it did not feel like a major tourist attraction. We traveled in early May. There was very little traffic. There were no large crowds. We could stop when something interested us, spend as much time as we wanted at the historic sites, talk with people along the way, and simply enjoy the countryside. If you find yourself in Dingle with a rental car, our recommendation is simple. Do not rush Slea Head Drive. Give yourself several hours. Pack a picnic. Stop frequently. Walk around the ancient sites. Talk to the people you meet. Watch the sheep. Look toward the Blasket Islands. And every once in a while, stop looking through the camera and simply stand there and take it all in. 30 miles may not sound like much, but on Slea Head Drive, 30 miles can take you through thousands of years of Irish history and through some of the most beautiful scenery anywhere along Ireland's 1,550-mile Wild Atlantic Way. For the Rizzy Farms guys, Slea Head Drive was one of the highlights of our visit to Ireland. We highly recommend taking the trip around the Dingle Peninsula. Thanks for watching. Rizzy Farms guys.